No.
Yeah, that would have been
Public
big.
school had spring break last week.
Oh, last?
Hello everyone, this is Rabbi Tobin. We're at B'nai Shalom Chag Sameach. It's Chol HaMoed, the middle of the holiday of Pesach, so I'm eating carrots. It's probably a good thing. Okay, so we are in the same chapter of Sanhedrin we have been in, chapter 3. Today, with God's help, we will actually finish the Mishnah, the section of Gemara on the Mishnah we've been studying.
Now, what page?
So we are on 28b3. 28b3. We are in the middle of a series of discussions about which relatives are not kosher witnesses to you. It follows all the men who are related to anybody within 2 generations of your family tree. So that would mean all the men in my father's line of my family tree, him and his brothers and his brother-in-laws. Any of the men in my line of the family tree, my brothers, my brother-in-laws, my cousins, my cousin-in-laws,
Nephews?
anybody who's one line below me in the family tree, my children, my sons-in-laws, and my nephews, my nephew-in-laws. And then on the other side, the question is, would it be as well my cousins, my first cousins once removed, which means my first cousin's children. That was a matter of debate about whether or not that they would also be eliminated from being able to be witnesses for or against me in a court of law. But basically the idea is, even by marriage, any of these people, anywhere as close to me in the family tree, are not kosher witnesses.
Or not?
Are not. Cannot be my witnesses. In our day, there's really only two practical concerns, and that's at a ketubah, where very often people want to give it to their brother-in-law or someone like that as an honor to sign the ketubah. That's not kosher.
That's
You
not?
cannot give it to your brother-in-law.
No?
You cannot give it to your son-in-law. You cannot give it to your cousin or your uncle-in-law. None of those people are kosher witnesses. So the people who sign on your ketubah at your wedding really have to be not related to you. And the phrase you okay?
Friends.
Hold it a cup.
So you can bring two friends, 2 neighbors.
Yes, I always tell them I need 2 adult Jewish people who are not related to each other or either of you, even by marriage. It's a complete swipe across the board. They're not related to each other or either of you, even by marriage.
Why?
Because they are, at the very least, they're in a theoretical line of inheritance. So if I die, or whatever, they could inherit my money. So they're involved in the deal, right? So they're not objective witnesses. However they testify could theoretically affect their own money, and therefore they're not considered to be purely objective. And it could be for good or bad. I mean, you might testify against your father that he committed a capital offense, so he'll get executed and you'll inherit his stuff. We don't always assume that the person's going to lie to help them. They might lie not to help them. Right? So we eliminate the whole system. All right? We're on 28b3.
B3?
28b3. Almost.
It should look like this.
There you go. 28b3. On the left side, the Gemara responds. Everyone see it?
Records?
Records.
Records.
Oh, I'm sorry, the Gemara records. Okay? And we just finished a Baraita, a Mishnah age principle that gets reinforced, that they believe there are 24 categories of not kosher witnesses, the 8 relatives times 3, meaning each of their parents, in-laws, and children. Yes?
This is, many times it says, Rab, so-and-so says in the name of Rab, so-and-so.
Yes.
Or, that's just to help back it up.
We have, so the question is, why does it say so-and-so said in the name of so-and-so, said in the name of so-and-so? All those kinds of quotes of the so-and-sos. Eventually it gets you back to an authoritative person of the age of the Mishnah. Usually the line of quote, the highest line of quote, the first person in that chronological order is usually somebody who is from Mishnah age authority. Not always. The other thing is that even if it's not Mishnah age, yes, it does back it up a little. I mean, if I quoted, FDR, right, and FDR said something, or JFK said something, that carries more weight than if I say Clinton or Obama or Trump or Bush, right? It's just the more recent people don't carry as much authority. Something that's been taught by a president of the United States that's been quoted for 100 years has more authority than something that was said last week at a rally.
Or like then Chief Justice Marshall or
Right.
Chief Justice Long.
So in the Supreme Court, which is probably a better analogy, it's precedent law. So somebody has a teaching that's precedent law, and it was quoted by this chain of students. Rav Gamliel's student, and then his student, then his student, and that person is the one quoting it to us. The other idea, though, is that there's a theological concern here, that there's a teaching, Ha'omer Devar B'Shem Omro Mevi Ge'ula Le'olam. Somebody who quotes his sources brings redemption to the world. This concept that redemption, meaning the turning of the cosmic tumblers so that redemption happens, the return of the people, the resurrection of the dead, the coming of Mashiach, the fixing of the human condition, all of these things, one of the things that is said to help affect that is quoting your sources, which is really kind of neat in an age of rampant internet plagiarism, right? That if you can say where you got it from, how are you bringing redemption to the world? What would that mean? One, you're not just making stuff up. And if any generation, everyone's just making up their own stuff, you really don't have Judaism anymore. Right? Judaism is the sum, literature, thought, behavior, experience of the people who originated in Judah thousands of years ago. And Judaism is tied to that legacy. If I just say, well, I think it's wrong, and I think that Judaism should be blank, and then I go and I do that, even if I'm a rabbi, I've invented a new religion, Tobinism, right? Right? And we're not allowed to do that. You have to say where you get it from. So if somebody says, Rabbi, should the synagogue X, Y, and Z? The first thing I tell them is whether or not I think it's an halachic question, right? I don't have any authority in the synagogue, in my view. I know there's rabbis who position themselves differently, but in my positioning, I do not have any authority in the synagogue beyond what Jewish law states. So I might not like it, or I might love it. But I'm not going to say you have to do it just because I like it or I don't like it, even though I'm the rabbi and I have a certain sensibility that goes along with my likes and dislikes. Because halacha is what's written in these books. It's connected directly to one of the topics in the books. And I'm an expert in those topics. I'm an expert in that material, and I am hired to be the authoritative interpreter of that material for this synagogue. That's actually written into my contract, that I'm the sole decider of halacha for B'nai Shalom. Everyone else has an opinion, but I have a ruling, right? Because I'm an expert in this field. I feel that if I extend that to non-halachic matters or social cultural matters, that I'm overstepping my purview.
When you make a decision, does someone question what do you base that decision on?
These books that I've been studying for decades, right? And if it's something too tough for me, I go to my colleagues or my teachers and I say, I'm looking at the sources this way. Is there something I'm missing? Is there something else out there? I'll research it. People will advise me. I'll look and see what other rabbis have ruled. If it's going to be a significant change in this congregation, of course, before any of that happens, I talk to the Rabbi Emeritus. I'll try and raise the topic and understand why are things the way they are, what would it mean to change them, right? And that's not just out of respect, though it is out of respect. It's also out of continuity of Jewish law as it has been taught. Right? So there have been times when there are things that I wouldn't have said are Jewish law, but they've been taught as Jewish law, so they are Jewish law. And the reverse. Things that I say are Jewish law that might not have been taught that way, but now they are, because I'm the authority at this time.
I think the best example is should you stand or sit during the Shema? And they say, well, half the congregation stands and half the congregation sits.
Right.
And so he goes and finds out, and he's the authority, he says, well, what's the thing? He says, half the congregation stands and half the congregation. So that's,
I don't know that. I don't. Yeah.
Well,
I don't think
Joke.
it's a joke. A best example would be something that has a clear ruling, not a this or that.
well, under Rabbi Asakov, that was when women first started getting rights, because when I first joined the shul,
okay,
we
okay,
weren't
okay.
counting
Okay, so
minion,
so
and
Rabbi,
we didn't do that
good.
yet.
So Rabbi Asakov did a process where he taught under his authority that women count in minyan and how that happens. Women can read from the Torah and how that happens. Women can read wear talit and how that happens, and much of that has continued to progress in the 8 years that I've been here.
and I remember when that occurred, and we lost people from this congregation.
Right.
Because they did not agree with.
Right, they went to AAPJT, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Right, and that's the weird thing about mon-
You were wrong, so I don't know
the
why.
si-
Well, I would have both.
the system of
Years that
halakha.
occurred.
Okay, we got to rein this all the way back to witnesses on documents. The system of halakhic authority was never based in multiple authorities in one town. Okay, that's one of the things that the modern age, since about the 1800s, we have had broad proliferation of different halakhic authorities in the same cities. It started with the migration of Sephardim into the Ashkenazi world because of the disruption in Spain and Portugal and the New World. And so you had people with different customs and different authorities now living in London, for example, and there's conflicts between the Ashkenazi authorities in London and the Sephardi synagogue in London about what they do and they don't do and who can do what, and whether or not people have the right to move from one synagogue to the other because they prefer that practice. And that was a great threat to halakhic authority, and there was some really, really firm, strong reactions to that kind of behavior. But once the cat's out of the bag, you can't stop it. People will choose the synagogues that they want to go to based on their feeling comfortable in the room, which means based on their agreeing with the halakhic authority. And if people attend based on their agreeing with the authority, it's not much of an authority. It's a marketplace. And people are buying what they want, and they're not buying what they don't want. And so Judaism in our day is facing that situation where people are going, I'm not paying dues if I don't agree with it. I'm not paying dues if the rabbi teaches things I don't like. I'm not paying dues if the synagogue behaves that way. I had a member in this congregation who was visiting, who had moved away. And this member said they went to a conservative synagogue somewhere else in the world, far, far, far away. As part of their move, they said, we're going to join the conservative synagogue. And they come from our conservative synagogue, which is very traditional. And that conservative synagogue ended Yom Kippur at 5 in the afternoon. Because all the Reform synagogues in town end at 5 in the afternoon, and that way people can go to the break fasts with all of their friends and neighbors and still be part of the conservative synagogue. So that didn't work for this person. And this person was relating the story to me that it was, I couldn't believe that I was in a synagogue where they would do that, and so now they're at Chabad, right? And there's, that's the thing. People, why did the conservative synagogue start ending at 5 p.m.? Because of the marketplace. Why did that person then choose to leave the conservative synagogue? Because they have a marketplace, and they can choose somewhere else, right? That's really not healthy for Judaism in its classical mode. But on the other hand, there is a diversity and a pluralism of Judaism that used to be geographic, and now it's actually belief and behavior based. Our pluralism used to be because you're from Poland, or you're from Italy, or you're from Morocco. Now it's because you believe in egalitarianism or you don't. You eat kidney oat or you don't, right? You think that Shabbat ends when the stars come out or you don't, and you're going to attach yourself to communities that line up with the things that you're comfortable with. And then from there you'll learn and you'll grow and you'll change, but within fairly narrow bands. Yeah.
Will Kitneo ever have a T on it?
It already does. If you go into Aaron's right here, and you go into the first kosher aisle on the left, and you look on there's two shelves there. There's tahini and something else, and it says kosher for Passover, and then in big letters, kitniot.
Oh yeah, okay. So you have now. So you have to be careful. I bought some candy that was right in the Passover section, ShopRite, you know, the whole thing there.
Yeah.
And then I just noticed that there was, it usually has no P on it. It was, they decided to take off the P, but, and I'm not
Was
sure,
it
even
kosher?
though it's a ShopRite, in Caldwell, not the one.
Was it kosher for Passover?
Well, it was, it didn't have, it had corn starch in it, so it had kidney yolk, which would, but they didn't put a P on it, but it was in that area with the macaroons
What's
and all, you know what I'm saying?
Kidney oat is stuff that's not made from grain.
It's
It's
like-
made from corn or rice or beans or something like that.
So it's not kosher.
So most
It is
Ashkenazi,
kosher.
No, it's,
let me answer. Most, because it's delicate, most Ashkenazi Jews have traditionally not eaten those foods on Passover. Those foods are kosher for Passover, but the strong Ashkenazi custom has been to not eat them. The Sephardi custom is to eat them because
Like
they are
rice.
yeah, because they're kosher. It's kosher for Passover. It's not that it's not kosher. It never becomes chametz. It's not forbidden in that way. It's just the custom in Ashkenaz not to do it, and it's a very strong custom. So the OU is an Ashkenazi organization. So if the OU,
yeah, it was an OU.
so the OU is not going to,
Orative.
so the OU is not going to put the Passover P on it if it has corn syrup in it.
Syrup.
Not going to do it. A Sephardi authority might. The
Yeah.
OU now does have a branch that is certifying kidney oat, but it's very small and very rare, and it's local authorities are really trying to stop this from happening.
There's just
In Israel, everyone eats kidney oat everywhere.
They're just,
They
there are a
all
lot, the things that are in the kosher for Passover section, and they don't have a P on it.
Well, you can't
And I got
depend.
in trouble with
You
this.
can't depend on the stock
Yeah.
boy at ShopRite for your hashgacha. It's in this aisle. It's in this aisle. It must be kosher. I mean, I've found chunky beef stew in the kosher aisle. So you have to. Oh, good! Look what I can eat. No, you cannot eat it.
Okay, but
All right.
What about the conservatives, some who allow music?
Can we? I want to study Talmud. I really do. It's 20 minutes into the class. We haven't touched anything. We should have an Ask the Rabbi question session one day. Okay, so here we go. We're on page 28b3 in the Schottenstein, chapter 3 of Sanhedrin. The Gemara records, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, Halacha ka Rabbi Yossi. So we've had this principle before, that the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi, when he's arguing with other people, he should get the halacha, right? So the footnote says that this refers to the view of the early Mishnah cited by Rabbi Yossi in our Mishnah, which holds that relatives are disqualified from testifying only if they're potential heirs. And that footnote is taken directly from Rashi. So if you go back to the Mishnah that launched us in this whole area, you'll remember it said this person and that person and this person and that person and this person and that person. And Rabbi Yossi comes in and says that's the teaching of Rabbi Akiva. But originally, that used to say it was just these few categories and anybody who's his heir, or these few categories of people because they are his heir, anybody who can inherit from him. So presumably, if you name a favorite friend as an heir in your will, that person now becomes ineligible to testify, as opposed to the way the Mishnah, most of the Mishnah is written. It would, if he's not a relative, he can testify. Right, so it has a practical outcome. Hahi matanta de have chatima ala tre gise, and so we're going to get a story, a case that was probably in the court, in which a certain ruling will be introduced. A certain gift document on which two brothers-in-laws were signed. Okay, a gift document. I gift you my flat screen TV. I'm going to gift you with a document. Why would I gift you with a document?
To prove that I'm giving it.
Right, to prove to other people. Because if I die tomorrow and my kids come in and say, I always wanted that flat screen, Abba told me I could have the flat screen. Right? That flat screen was meant for me. Mm-hmm. And my friend has it hanging on his wall. You know, he's got this document to prove that I knowingly gave it to him. What's another reason why you would give a gift document?
Land or something that can't be physically transported, so the document would be a deed, say, to a piece of land.
So if the item can't be moved, you can still have a document that has money in it. A gift document is saying that no money exchanged. Ownership transferred without money. So the deed to the property is still going to have the money associated with it. You bought it from somebody, right?
Well, it's stocks and bonds are in the same category.
But you're putting money in, right? So this is something where no money transferred, just ownership of the item. Why would I want to do that?
You have to watch the Super Bowl. You need the button, this flat screen TV.
Oh, okay. I wasn't saying why would I gift the TV. I was saying why would I have a gift document? Well, the other thing is, look,
You need
maybe.
a whole, you have to have that.
Have you ever
material
read?
before
Have
you
you
can-
ever done a private sale of a car in the state of New Jersey,
Yeah,
and then gone and registered it with the Department of Motor Vehicles?
yeah.
How much did you write down for the price of the car?
Less than the real value.
Well, we did the legitimate price.
You write the legitimate price because that's the law, and then they charge you taxes
Right.
based on the price you paid. The pull on most people is to write down that they paid $50 for the car instead of 5,000, right? Because the difference between taxes on 50 and 5,000 is tremendous, and a lot of people will do that. So but if you gift somebody the car, they owe the taxes on the Blue Book value of the car because they've received something that has a known value. So most people will say, I bought the car for $50 or $100 or $200. If it's like my kid, if I'm giving my kid my car, but I'm transferring it to their ownership completely, it's better that I sell it to them for $50, even though it's worth more, right? So I would assume these kinds of considerations were in play in the ancient world. They didn't have as developed a tax structure or something, but there was a concept. There must have been an advantage to transferring it without payment. Right? Maybe I owe them, but I don't owe them financially. I just owe them, right? There's something that I owe them for, and if I give them my car, we're even. Or my horse,
Right.
right? Or my wagon, or my tools, or, whatever. And I'm going to have a transfer. So sometimes it's in people's best interest to have a legal transfer of property in a way that the monetary transfer rules don't apply. Okay? The most common form of a gift, however, a gift document, is to, you do it before you die. Because the Torah is very clear about who inherits from you. And you really can't say, I choose for Bonnie to inherit from me before my wife and children. Right? Bonnie has just been a great member of my Talmud class for all this time, and I really think that all my stuff should go to Bonnie when I die. And if I write in my will, my last will and testament, I hereby bequeath, I hereby cause to inherit my blah, blah, blah. It's actually contrary to Torah law, and it doesn't work. But if I write a document, I hereby gift Bonnie all of my property. That's okay. I'm allowed to give her stuff, right?
But I can contest it as your wife.
She's got a document that I gifted
No,
it
you
to her.
just have me.
So
honored.
I gifted it to her even though she didn't take possession of it. So I gifted her something in my home. Or my home.
And
Right?
it can't be contested?
It can be contested and they'll lose because there's a document signed in front of witnesses.
We can say it was under duress.
It wasn't. That's why the witnesses are there. The witnesses are there to testify that I did
Okay.
this. That's why you have witnesses on a document. Every wife in the world is going to contest that gift. Right? Which is why you would do a gift document with witnesses.
Oh, with
because we know everyone's going to come after that. That's going to wind up in probate.
So you can't go after the document, you go after the witnesses.
Well, that'll be the next step.
Right.
Can you
Right.
unrule? Can you make the witnesses right?
How are we gonna
If they're
get
not
rid of
kosher, then.
All right. So now we know the case. The case is probably getting around a last will and testament and getting around to the Torah rules about who inherits. So it's that kind of a gift document. That's usually what this would be. Okay? All right. I mean, it happens, right? People give things, right? So like my mom died, in hock to the IRS, and about 10 other companies, right? The IRS is the big boy, right? And so every single thing my mom owns, the second she dies, is frozen by the IRS. And then all, Verizon and everyone else fights over the liquidation of all of her assets, and then who's going to take what. And that's the condition that my mom died in. My mom gifted us stuff before she died, and it's not in there. But if my mom had willed it to us, the IRS can go after it
Right.
because it's in the estate.
It's very common for people going into nursing homes who gift their children everything so that they would have qualify for Medicaid. I
Right.
mean,
You can gift your
not-
life savings.
Right,
I mean,
they can't so much the cash because there's a look back, but
There's a-
everything else.
There's a look
yeah.
back law, yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
But
but
the look back is
everything
only a
else-
few years. It's just
Yeah.
to stop the person on their
Yeah.
deathbed.
It's actually more now, I think it's like 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 5 years.
Yeah.
It used to be 5, I don't know.
Well, Yitzchak with Jacob and Esau, he gave to Jacob. He
Right.
promised the inheritance to
He,
Jacob.
it was promised to Esau, but he gave it to Jacob.
Jacob.
And it worked. That's why the first story has Esau selling it to Jacob, selling his birthright to Jacob for the pot of stew.
Yeah.
That's to get around the fact that Isaac really can't defraud Esau of the firstborn's birthright. He can't do it unless Esau has already sold it, which he did. So Esau had already relinquished his rights to it, and then what Isaac did was just the same thing, or affirming that same thing. He didn't actually do much that was new. Okay, there's also a blessing there that's not the birthright, but it's a different topic. All right, let's go on. So, congratulations, we got one sentence in. All right, so Savar Rav Yosef Lach Shure. So there were two brother-in-laws who signed this gift document as witnesses. Okay, so this is, let's say that my mom is dying, and she has gifted my sister all of the jewelry, because there's one girl in the family. But the jewelry is the only thing my mom owns that's worth anything. Okay, this didn't happen, by the way. I'm just making up a case and using my family because it's easier to come up with cases. My sister, my other sister's brother, and my sister's
In-law.
sister-in-law's husband, right? Those two people signed on the document.
Oh.
Well, wait,
Two brother-in-laws signed on a matana.
there's a certain on which two brothers-in-law, yeah. they
All right,
signed,
forget
but
it.
it's the two
Forget it. I have 5 sisters now. We just made this up. I have 5 sisters. 2 of their husbands signed on the document to give the jewels to a third sister.
Oh, because I was gonna ask here,
Just
I
clean it
didn't
up.
think that the brothers-in-law had to be related to the person they're witnessing, they just have to be related to each other.
They could be. This could be 2
That's-
brother-in-laws
that's
from
the way I
Sanford and
interpret-
Son, collections.
That's the way I interpreted this, they're not related to the person who needs the document signed, but they are related to each other.
In our Mishnah, it wouldn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't. If they are brother-in-laws, they're out. If they're my brother-in-law, they're out. So I made them brother-in-laws who are my brother-in-law.
But that's automatically they're out. whereas
Is it?
related- Yeah.
No,
Okay.
according to this, it says that they're not disqualified.
Well,
No, that's because related to each other, not
Fine.
the person's son.
Fine. So I have 2 brothers down the street. I have 2 brother-in-laws down the street. They're married to sisters. They signed together on the document for my sister to get this matana. Okay, clean case. Rabbi Yosef goes to make it kosher, which from everything we've learned should not happen, right? De Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel halachaka Rabbi Yossi, because Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel that the halacha is always like Rabbi Yossi. Right? And so since those brother-in-laws don't stand to inherit from each other in this case, why shouldn't they be kosher witnesses? Right? If my sister dies with the jewels in her hand, those guys aren't inheriting anything. Why can't they testify together? Okay? So Mani, you're right. It's better if they're not in the family. All right? So, following Rabbi Yossi in the Mishnah, where it's people who inherit, that should be permitted. So Amar Abaye, Amar Le Abaye, Abaye says to Rabbi Yosef, Mimai de Rabbi Yossi de Matnitin, de Mechaser Bekiso, from what do you know that Shmuel was referring to the Rabbi Yossi in our Mishnah, who qualifies one's brother-in-law to testify since he's not an heir? So in other words, he comes and he goes, how do you know that it's this Rabbi Yossi? So when Shmuel said halachaka Rabbi Yossi, how do you know he was talking about this case? Maybe you're saying halachaka Rabbi Yossi regarding hamburgers. Some completely unrelated case. Right? So that's interesting. Dilma, Rabbi Yossi de Baraita de Fasil Begiso. Maybe it's the Rabbi Yossi who was in the Baraita that we just finished last week. Not Rabbi Yossi who was in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yossi in the Baraita disqualified a brother-in-law. So if he says halakha Rabbi Yossi, he might actually be saying the brother-in-laws are not kosher. That's an argument against using halakha Rabbi Yossi. So Rabbi Yossi replies, no, that's a ridiculous idea. Lo salkadatach. Don't even think that. Demar Shmuel, because Shmuel once explained, Kagon ana ufinchas de havinen achi v'gise, such as me and Pinchas, who are brothers and brother-in-law. We are both brother and brother-in-law. How does that happen?
Married sisters.
Two brothers.
Two brothers married two sisters. Right? So they're brother and brother-in-law.
Like the Katz's.
All right? Aval gise de alma shapir dami. But a regular brother-in-law in general is able to testify. So when the brother-in-law is in the family, that's when it's not allowed. But if the brother-in-laws are not in the family, it would be allowed. Okay? Abaye counters that. He goes, Dilma kagon ana ufinchas mishum de giso kamar. But perhaps Shmuel said, in fact, that the example of me and Pinchas was just to illustrate somebody's brother-in-law in general. Amar le Rav Yosef, Rav Yosef responded to him, and he said, Zil Kanya be'ede Mesira. Go and acquire this gift by witnesses of delivery of the document to you. Rabbi Elazar, in accordance with Rabbi Elazar. In other words, how do you want to get around this? You've got a document that has two brother-in-laws signed on it, and you're worried about its kashrut, right? So you get two other witnesses who will witness that you're acquiring the document. And now you've acquired the document, which is a matanah, which is a gift. Does that help?
Are the witnesses relatives?
No, two new witnesses who don't have this problem. So now you can say that under kosher witnesses, I've acquired a document. I don't know if we've solved the question of whether or not it's a kosher document. Right?
Yeah.
We haven't talked about it yet. Only talking about the witnesses.
Well, if the witnesses are not kosher, then the document's not kosher. We're assuming it's written properly.
Okay.
Okay? And the witnesses are what's in challenge. So how would having two witnesses for the delivery of the document help me? Under what circumstance would that help me? The original owner of the document standing there as well. So he doesn't have to write a new document.
So in other words, it's like you have 4 witnesses instead of 2 for the document.
Right. So I have two witnesses that can testify that this document was delivered to me properly. So I mean, it becomes a rigmarole. So if I'm trying to give a gift document, and I use two brother-in-laws who are unrelated to the person I'm gifting, and there's a problem because of those two people, now I could commission 2 other witnesses who would witness the delivery of my document to the person I'm trying to give it to. Does that make the document more kosher? No, it's not a good solution, right? It doesn't really solve the underlying problem. So Abai is going to object to that as well. He's going to say, V'ha amar Rabbi Abba. But Rabbi Abba said, Modeh Rabbi Elazar mizuyaf mitocho shehu pasul. Rabbi Elazar agreed that an inherently fraudulent document is not valid. In other words, even though Rabbi Elazar said that the delivery of a document in front of witnesses makes it an effective document, period. In other words, all kinds of irregularities can be overcome in that manner. If the document is inherently false, then it doesn't work. It doesn't work. But Amarle, Rabbi Yosef says, Zil, go. Lo shav keli de otvinelach. They do not allow me to give the gift to you. Your document signed by a relative witness is worthless. And that's the end of the ruling.
So having the 2 brothers-in-law sign
Did
the
not
document
work.
fraudulent.
It didn't work, and there was no way to work around it. It's just not going to be accepted, and that's the end of that.
And but not that it's in here, but if the two brothers-in-law who are witnesses, but they're not related to either the giver or the recipient, actually one of the two would be legitimate witness, and they should have another one who's not related.
Once two guys come in together, they have to both be kosher, or they both don't count. They would have to leave and do a new. You can't like scratch out. You can't like sign a third name, and say, well, two of the three are kosher. It's a no good document. Once two people who are not good together sign, it's a no good document. You have to start all over.
Validates the other.
You need two to validate it in the first place, right? So it's simply not been validated. So when you bring a third person in, you're only bringing in one person, because you have a bad pair and a person, right? So that's not it, right? So you have to start all over again with the two good people.
And I guess you could do all this with a tribe where everybody's related.
It'd be very hard. Imagine a small village in Poland and you're trying to do this.
Back to the ketubah question.
Yeah,
What
ketubah.
happens if you find out that one of the witnesses on the ketubah isn't gonna be kosher?
Oh.
What happens to the?
All right, so the
how-
question is, what if one of the witnesses on the ketubah is not kosher?
Yeah.
According to Mishnah Kiddushin, Isha niknei b'shlosha drachim. A woman is acquired in a marriage, becomes a wife in three
Three ways.
manners.
Yeah.
Any one of the three is effective. Shtar, kesef, and bia. So it's a document, the exchange of something of value, or intercourse between the two. So if you say, will you marry me, and you do a document, they're married, no matter what else has or hasn't happened. If you say, will you marry me, and you give her a valuable ring, like every engaged couple these days does, you're married, right? You're at least betrothed, but you're married, you're an Eish Ish. If you say, will you marry me, and then you have sex, you're married.
You
We
can't
don't-
back out?
Well, you need a get.
Oh, then you
Right?
need to get.
So you need to get out of that marriage. So if one of those isn't good, that's why we do the weddings we do. We have the document, we have the ring, and we have the time alone after the ceremony. So presumably one of those three things at least has worked, if not all three. Right? And we shouldn't be depending on only one thing. I mean, what if the ring is fake gold? And that's all you had? What if the document is a bad witness and that's all you had? Now, when people want to go back and uproot a wedding, uproot a marriage, which every once in a while you want to do that. You know, the husband has disappeared and you can't find him, but you think he's still alive, so you can't, and she wants to move on with her life. If you can find something wrong with the original ketubah so that they got married on false premises, then you can uproot the marriage and say they weren't married because she was promised this or that, or she thought, and it was on false, terms, and so you can uproot it in that way. But
Putting the
Our father
two
didn't
and
give the
three
son a
in
long
there.
job. Put him into the
For
business.
marriage, I need one of them.
Rabbi,
To be good.
so Rabbi Yehuda says, here we go. Rabbi Yehuda said, if one dies and his son-in-law has children from her, he remains a relative. Why is that? Okay, so they're giving us the case. They're going to make it easy on us. The Schottenstein is going to tell us what the case is before we read the case so we can understand what's about to happen. So, Rabbi Yehuda said that if one's daughter dies and his son-in-law has children from her, he remains a relative. Remember we had that case?
Yeah.
All right, so this was even... People are not kosher witnesses because of their married relationship to you. If the married relationship ends, they become kosher witnesses. So my brother-in-law divorces my sister. My brother-in-law is now a kosher witness because he's an ex-brother-in-law. My sister dies, and my brother-in-law is her widower. He's not related to me, and therefore he's a kosher witness to me.
If
From-
there's no children.
If there are children, however, now it's a problem because he could inherit from that child and that child could inherit from me. Right? So if I die, my grandchild will inherit, and if that child dies, his father will inherit. Right? So that person is in a line of inheritance, so now he's a problem. So that's what the Rebbe Yehuda teaching was. The Gemara cites various opinions concerning the halakha in this matter. And here we go. Amar Rabbi Tanachum, Amar Rabbi Tavla, Amar Rabbi Baruna, Amar Rav. So Tanachum said in the name of Tavla, said in the name of Baruna, said in the name of Rav. Rav is an authoritative Amora. He was the head of the Babylonian yeshiva. So Rabbi Yehuda, and the halacha follows Rabbi Yehuda in this matter. So we've got 4 generations of people in the yeshiva in Babylonia who are writing the Talmud who agree that this is the halacha. Rava Amar Rav Nachman. Rava says in the name of Rav Nachman, Ein halacha ka Rabbi Yehuda. Straight contradiction, that this does not follow Rabbi Yehuda, but rather the first ruling that we had, that a former son-in-law is not a relative, even if he's father to one's own grandchildren. V'chein Amar Rabba bar Bar Chana Amar Rabbi Yochanan. And so did Rabba bar Bar Chana say in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Ein halacha ka Rabbi Yehuda. So we have 2 different traditions that Rabbi Yehuda does not get the halacha here. None of them, by the way, is Rav, so they're not going to win. Another version of Rabba bar Bar Chana's statement goes like this. Ikademat nelai laha de Rabba bar Bar Chana aha. So there are those who record this statement of Rabba bar Bar Chana as referring to the following Baraita. Enzo de Rash Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Rabbi Yossi Aglili expounded the following. Uvat el kohanim haleviim ve'el hashofet asher yeh b'yamim hahem. You shall take it before the Levite, the Kohanim, and the judge will be in those days. All right, so that's a command that in future days you will have judges. Why must the verse add who will be in those days? V'chita le al datcha she'adam holech etzel shofet shelo haya b'yamav. Would it enter your mind that a person should go to a judge who is not living in his days? I mean, obviously, that's just dumb. Why would the Torah say, you're going to go to the judge who's in those days? No, you're going to have a seance and go to a judge who's been dead for 100 years. Of course you're going to a judge who's been in your days. Right? That's the Baraita's objection. Pretty good objection. Ella ze shaya karov v'nitrachek. So who was the one who was a judge in those days? In which days? In the days of the court case that you're worried about. Who had been a relative and now is no longer related to you. So he was the person who was in those days. Amar Rabba bar Bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, and Rabba bar Bar Chana said in the Rabbi Yochanan, halacha ka Rabbi Yossi Aglili, and the halacha follows Rabbi Yossi Aglili. And from Rabbi Yochanan's need to rule on the matter, we see that Rabbi Yossi Aglili, his opinion is not universally held. So in this one case, Rabbi Yossi Aglili won, and that proves that in most cases he doesn't win. Is that good logic? No, that's not very
So
good.
he recused himself.
Well,
Or they have to recuse themselves.
we stay with our Mishnah, and our Mishnah says you're not allowed to be a judge or a witness in a family member's case. And that's where we're left at the end. All right, Gemara relates an instance where a judge did in fact disqualify himself from adjudicating a case involving relatives. Here we go. B'nei Chamua de Mar Ukva. The sons of Mar Ukva's father-in-law, Krovim v'nitra chaku chavu, they were relatives who became distant. So these are the sons of Mar Ukva's father-in-law. In other words, they are my wife's brothers.
My brothers-in-law.
The son of Mar Ukva's father-in-law. Mar Ukva's father-in-law is his wife's, I'm Mar Ukva. My wife's father has sons. In other words, her brothers,
Yeah,
right?
so it's your brother.
My brother-in-laws.
Yes.
Why is it called the sons of Mar Ukva's father-in-law? Because they may be from another woman. So they would be sons by a woman other than my wife's mother. In which case, they're not really her brothers. They might be her half-brothers. But are they my brother-in-laws? They're my half-brother-in-laws. Right? There's going to be something weird about the phrasing to say it this way. Otherwise, you would just say brother-in-law. All right? They were relatives, and then they became distant because my wife, God forbid, died. Ata lakame ledina. And those former brother-in-laws came to him for adjudication, because Mar Ukva is a judge. And they come to him for a case. Amar laho, Mar Ukva said, Pesil na l'chud ledina. I'm puzzled, I'm disqualified. Go to another judge. Amruleh, my datech. How could you, what's your reasoning? What are you talking about? Rabbi Yehuda, is it because you think the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, that one is ineligible to adjudicate the relatives of his dead life if she left children? Then you would be wrong. Anan ma'itinen igarta mi ma'arava. We will bring you a letter from the west, from the authorities in Eretz Israel, the ein halacha ka Rabbi Yehuda, that the halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda. Amar laho, Mar Ukva said to them, Atu b'kaba Dekira idaktana becho, and was I glued to you with a cob of wax when I married your sister? In other words, you know, he's like, am I stuck with you, like forever? Right? That's the question.
Glued at the hip.
Like, I know I wasn't like forever connected to you when I married her. Delok amina psilna l'chu ladina. I have not said that I'm disqualified from rendering judgment for you. Ella mishum delot saititu dina. Other than then, I don't think you're going to listen to me. So this is a case of familiarity breeds contempt. So the story starts out with Mar Ukva recusing himself because his former brother-in-laws are standing before him in the court. Mar Ukva is a judge. And he says, I'm recusing myself from this case. I can't judge this case because you're my former brother-in-laws. And they say, brother, what are you talking about? You're making a horrible mistake, a miscarriage of justice. We'll bring an authoritative letter from the Eretz Israel that interprets that Rabbi Yehuda gets a halacha. It's not like Rabbi Yossi. And we're former relatives, not relatives, and you can judge us. And he says, okay, you're right. You've got the law absolutely right. But you guys have never, ever listened to me. Not once. And there's no reason for me to believe you're going to start listening to me now.
Seems like there's some definite
And therefore, I am not going to sit in, I'm not going to give you a ruling.
Well, I also interpret that because they used to be related, that they expected a more favorable ruling. Than
Maybe.
they might be entitled to.
Maybe. I mean, familiarity breeds contempt. If your childhood friend, who you stole candy bars with from the local ShopRite, is the judge putting you in prison for theft, you think you're not going to say something, right? Right? I mean, if you know someone too long, they can't be your judge, right? You were family for long enough. I just can't do this. But he could have. Like, if there's not another court, then he would have been the judge for the court. He'd have to. I think it's a funny case. All right, Mishnah goes on. Now, remember we had the case at the end of the Mishnah about Ohev and Soneh, the person who loves and the person who hates, and the person who loves is your groomsman, and the person who hates is anybody who hasn't spoken to you for 3 days out of anger. And we determined at the end of the Mishnah that nobody in the people of Israel had ever behaved that way to lie in court for those reasons. It's unthinkable. Okay?
no gambling here.
Yes, I'm shocked to hear that there's gambling in this establishment. You're winning, monsieur. Ohev zeh shushvino, the friend, his groomsman, etc. Vechama, and for how long is this groomsman never going to be able to testify? Like, he was your groomsman once at your first wedding, you've been married 7 times since. Like, he's still not qualified to testify? Rav Abba said in the name of Rabbi Yirmiyah, said in the name of Rav. So again, we're going back to Rav. Kol shiv at yemei amishtei. So he's only not qualified for the wedding week, the 7 days of Sheva Brachas. V'Rabbanan mishmei de Rava Amrei. But the rabbi said in the name of Rava, afilu miyom rishon ve'elach, from the first day of the festivity onward, he is qualified to testify. So the idea that the shoshbin is not testifying, it's something has gone wrong with the wedding. Right? So you have a ketubah for a virgin, and you two go upstairs, and lo and behold, she's not. And so you're going to come back and you want your groomsmen to be testifying about something involved with it. He can't. It's in the middle of the wedding. He's involved in the wedding and testimony. He can't do that. But Rava says, from the day after the wedding, this guy can be an aid for you, a witness for you. Okay. It's not like they went out and they started another financial deal in a document. This would be involved in the wedding still. Okay, and the Soneh, Kol Shelo Diber, and who's an enemy? Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught in a Baraita. Hu lo oyev, he's neither an enemy, ye'idenu, and he may testify, So let's read the interpretation. When the scripture says regarding an inadvertent killer, he was neither his enemy, it teaches that Idenu, only one who is not an enemy may testify about the killer. Okay, so what's the thought here? There's a Torah verse about a guy who kills somebody accidentally, and you get sent to a city of refuge. You don't get executed. And it says specifically why you don't get executed, because when you kill somebody, you're supposed to be killed. And it says because he wasn't his enemy. He didn't lie in wait. He didn't plot against him. He's not his enemy. Right?
It
And
wasn't premeditation.
Right. So the rabbis take that concept and they take the concept of premeditation and they apply it to witnesses. A witness who testifies to kill somebody, right? If he's his enemy, it's as if he's swinging the hammer at his head, right? He's just using the court to kill him. So, and he wasn't his enemy. So the only one who is not an enemy may testify about a killer. V'lo mevakesh ra'ato, and when it says, nor one who sought his misfortune, it teaches that ye'idenu, he should be able to judge him. So only one who did not seek his misfortune may judge him. So they take that case and they say there can be no premeditation or no evil intent when you are testifying, right? Interestingly, the testimony might be truthful, right? I hate somebody and I really want him to go to jail and I've got the goods on him and I'm going to go testify. That testimony is not going to be accepted because it's coming from a place of wanting to do him harm.
It's not impartial.
It's not impartial.
But we run into that problem that we've seen before when we start mixing capital cases with monetary. One could always bring, well, one would lie in a monetary, but not lie in a capital. So I find it.
But they resolved that passage of the Gemara by saying that the laws of Edut are the same for capital and for monetary. Although we might think people are more or less likely to lie in those two cases, the laws of Edut wind up being the same. Doesn't solve it, it just means they're chosen to ignore
I
it.
thought they were still different.
No, they ended that with a one-liner that proved that all, there shall be one law for you.
One law, okay, so it's just for the.
Right. All right, now the Gemara is going to ask, oh, Ashkachan. Hey. Ashkachan means it's been proven, even if you disagree. Ashkachan Sone. So we have found, for sure, regarding the enemy, Ohev Minalan. But where's a Torah verse that says that a friend is disqualified from custody? Kri be hachi. Read the verse, the same verse, this way. V'hu lo oyev lo. He was neither his enemy, v'lo ohev lo, nor his friend. Okay, so it's playing on the word oyev and making a pun with the word ohev. Is a pun a firm basis for halachic reasoning? No. But it is for them. Krei behachi. Vehu lo oyev lo, velo ohev lo. Ye'idno. So, if he was neither his oyev nor his ohev, he may testify for him. Since the first part of the verse has a double meaning, the second part of the verse may be interpreted in a similar vein. Velo mevakesh ra'ato, nor one who sought his misfortune. Velo tovato, nor his benefit. Ye'idno. That only those people may not judge him. Only one who does not seek misfortune or benefit may judge him. Mi de ohev ketiv, is nor his friend written in the verse? We all know it's not. And we leave that question hanging in the air. And since it's not in the verse, you can't prove anything from it, and we need to find another source. Ella, Savarahu. No, it's logic. And we saw this earlier in this chapter too. It's not about a verse. It's about logic. In the past when they claimed that the logic was not good. Ella Savarahu. It's logic. Oyev my tama. What's the reason why a hater, an enemy, is not allowed? Mishum de merachaka date. Because his attitude is unfavorable. And therefore he can't be trusted. Ohev nami mikar vadate. And the friend as well, since his attitude is favorable. In other words, biased. You were biased this way, you were biased that way. That's just logic. You shouldn't allow people who are biased. Okay, pause. New start. The sages in the Mishnah dispute Rabbi Yehuda's ruling that an enemy or friend is disqualified. The Gemara is going to ask, V'Rabbanan, and the sages of our Mishnah said, Hi, lo oyev lo, v'lo mivakesh ra'ato, my dar shebe. How do they expound? How do the sages of our Mishnah explain the verse? He was neither an enemy nor one who sought his misfortune. So if that can't apply to the ohev, how did our sages apply that verse? Chad l'dayan, one, the one who is neither his enemy, is the dayan, the judge. Idach ketanya, as if we were taught in a Braita, Amar Rabbi Yossi beRabbi Yehuda, 29a2. V'hu lo oyev lo v'lo mevakesh ra'ato. He was neither his enemy nor one who sought his misfortune. Mikan lishnei talmidei chachamim sheson'im ze et ze. From here we learn of two Torah scholars who hate each other. She'ein yoshvim badin echad. They may not sit on a tribunal together. Is that a convincing argument? It doesn't have anything to do with the Ohev. So the question minalan or minahanimile, when you say where do you know that someone who loves is not allowed to testify, you wind up not having a Torah verse for that. You only learn it as the absolute value, the opposite of having someone who hates. If you can't have hate, you can't have love. Love, hate.
Well,
Not
that-
clear here. This is conflating judges and witnesses together.
Which they've done pretty much straight through. Every time they've been talking about witnesses, they're also talking about judges. The last two stories with Mar Utra and the others, or Mar Ukva and the others, you're talking about judges now. A judge not being the judge for the two brother-in-laws who come. The rules of being a judge, as far as partiality, are the same as the rules of being a witness for partiality. Okay?
Is that why a wife cannot testify against her husband?
Because we saw a week or two ago that a woman and a man, a married couple, are considered halachically to be the same person. So you can't testify for or against each other.
She can testify for, but not against.
No, cannot testify for or against each other.
Because she's the
Is
same
that
person.
still in the courts
Yeah,
today?
you can't. I don't think can a wife or a husband testify in court today? I don't think so.
Unless they're separated.
I think that she can testify for, not against.
Well, she's witness to him.
She can't be compelled
She
to
can't be
testify
compelled, but she can.
against her will.
She can do it, but
She could stand up and say, "Yeah, I saw my husband kill that guy."
it's just not.
No,
an
she can
obligation.
say,
Our court-
he was with me, he did not kill.
Yeah, they say that all the time, but you're not.
I mean, no one's going to listen to her.
Nobody's gonna listen to her.
Because it's,
It's a husband and a wife. We presume they're biased. They'll say anything.
You're better off listening to, asking an attorney. I'm not even sure how accurate the TV procedurals are, for that.
All right, well, that's the end of that section, and we are at 1 o'clock. So when we come back next week, we're going to do the new Mishnah, thank God. It's a whole new topic, and it's how do we scare the heck out of the witnesses to make sure they'll tell the truth. It's much more fun. So-
Bribe them.
No, we scare them. We get real scary.
Can we then say